Thanks, Phil. Welcome everyone and good afternoon. Thank you so much for attending today's webinar on the new BTEC Level 3 International Suite. Just to let you know, we are recording today's event, so please do keep your cameras off unless you want to be in the recording that we share with delegates that couldn't make it today. So just to go through the agenda quickly, and then I'll get my co-presenters to introduce themselves. So we'll be looking at the context for the development of these new qualifications, including some of the reform that's going on in England and what's going on within the international market. Then we're going to have a closer look at the design of the BTEC International Suite, some of the popular models of delivery, as well as a look at the quality assurance processes and the assessment model that's associated with these qualifications. We'll also be looking at the current recognition of the qualifications, and at the end of today's webinar there'll be a dedicated period for any Q&A that you may have in relation to these new qualifications. Just to say, at the bottom of the screen there is a chat function, so do feel free as we proceed during the webinar to drop any questions you have into the chat function at the bottom, and then we'll come to them at the end of the towards the end of the webinar during the Q&A session. You'll also have at the end of the session opportunity to use the raise the hand function, which I think is under reactions, if you also wanted to raise the hand and ask something, but you'll have that opportunity there too. So just to introduce myself properly, I think I know many of you already. My name is Ria Barter and I'm the Head of Stakeholder Engagement at Pearson. So I've got a key role in terms of working closely with UK universities and also HE organisations, and as well as teacher associations. So I'm joined today by my two co-presenters, Phil and Tom, and I'll ask them to introduce themselves. So Phil, do you want to go first?
Yes, hi, my name's Phil Myers. I'm Head of International Products, and my team develops international qualifications in BTEC and apprenticeship subjects. Tom?
Hi, I'm Tom Connor. I'm a sector manager at Pearson, but I've been doing some work with Ria on relationships with HE, and I have some experience with the international BTECs and help develop some of them for my subjects.
Brilliant, thank you. And then I think I'm handing over now to Phil.
Yes, indeed. So I'll press on. What we wanted to talk about was, why international BTEC? Why are we operating in the international market? And it won't be a surprise to you that vocational skills is increasingly a priority for international jurisdictions, international governments. They're looking at their skills profile. They've experienced COVID, they've experienced the digital revolution, and TVET and vocational reform is increasingly a priority. So many of the jurisdictions have vocational education, but they increasingly recognise that it's not up to date, it's not contemporary, and it's not responding to the current situation. You'll know the statistics, the top 20 emerging growth economies, huge populations, huge swathes of those learners who are going through substandard vocational education systems and not really being able to progress into either the vocational routes or the university progression routes which they need to. So we're seeing increasing demand internationally for a high quality vocational education. We're seeing this through our international schools. So those are our schools who look to the UK for their education and are familiar with UK models, but we're also seeing this through national schools. And this is national government initiatives across an increasing number of jurisdictions. And really, we've looked to beat international level 3 BTEC to harness the power of BTEC and to apply that power within international jurisdictions. That applies across international schools and national provision. You may be familiar with some of these stats. We teach International BTEC we teach BTEC in 70 countries globally. You'll know the proportions who progress through to university study in the UK. We see similar percentages progressing through to university in our international cohorts. As you would imagine, in national provision, there's a slightly different profile, much more in terms of local university progression, but still many of those learners will be looking to progress potentially into the UK and progress into UK higher education institutions. In terms of our areas of growth, we're seeing massive growth in the Middle East. So UAE, Saudi Arabia and Oman, high demand for BTEC and an eye to national provision in those countries particularly. South Asia, India and Pakistan. India is a particular area of growth for us. Thailand, Netherlands is an area where we've historically done a lot of business and continue to do so, and I'll talk a little bit about Netherlands a bit later on. Uzbekistan in the Central Asia region, so Central Asia's taken on a lot of China's industrial development at the moment, and Central Asia is looking to develop its TVET curriculum correspondingly, and in Latin America and Mexico. So these are our priority areas, these are our growth areas. Just in the context of England reform, where we, as you will be familiar, I'm sure, in terms of what's happened in terms of England, historically for our international schools, we've offered the QCF version of the BTEC Nationals. But you will of course be familiar with the fact that that's been withdrawn. It was offered internationally until September 2021, where we had a small cohort taking that, but we're now transitioned all of our international centres into the our new provision. We weren't able to continue to offer the QCF Nationals internationally, and actually we decided we didn't really want to, for similar reasons as in the UK. You know, they have been used for a long period of time. The world is changing, vocational priorities are changing, and actually we did recognise how valid that work on the BTEC Nationals has been, and the BTEC National reform. So when we were looking at our international provision, we took the content which had been developed by through that BTEC Nationals project, and we worked on the basis of that content. And therefore, the International Level 3 BTEC suite is based on that BTEC Nationals content. These new qualifications, the first thing I should say is that they're not Ofqual regulated. They're Pearson regulated. So Pearson, under its remit as a regulated organisation, applies the same quality standards to both the development and the assessment of the international level 3 BTECs as we do to all our regulated provision. But nevertheless, the international level 3 BTEC is not Ofqual regulated, and that's because Ofqual's remit, and Ofqual are very honest about this. They see their remit as very much England, and of course we know that Welsh and Northern Ireland, Wales and Northern Ireland have a separate regulation system. So that's the first thing I'll say about the International Level 3 BTEC. The second thing is, drawing on this fact that we've used the RQF Nationals content as the basis, what we've done is to update that content. So, you know, quite a lot has happened in the world since 2016 when the BTEC Nationals were RQF versions were first released. We've had the opportunity to update the content, introduce some new areas of content, and internationalize the content. And of course, you'll recognise legislation references which are UK specific and not relevant to international learners necessarily, but they need to understand legislation in their own context. We've written our curriculum to allow them to reference their own legislation. So yes, and then there are elements of global content, there are developments in technology, AI, for example, and digital technologies, electrical automotive content in our engineering. There are numerous things we've been able to update, and we have done so to make sure the content is absolutely contemporary. I should say the International BTEC is not part of the Level 3 review, in as much as the Level 3 review has a focus on England qualifications. I should reiterate, of course, Pearson being a regulated organisation, we apply our quality measures to all of our products, be they England, Wales, Scotland, Northern Ireland, or international. So the International Level 3 BTEC, as I say, we have a large international private school sector who take those qualifications. What we don't have, and I should be very clear on this, is we don't have any independent schools in the UK, and we don't intend to either. There will be a very clear separation between our UK England provision and our international provision. The International Level 3 BTECs are taken by international private schools internationally, and that provides quite a large customer base for us. But increasingly, we are working in a national context. So I mentioned Uzbekistan. I'll mention Thailand, where the Thai government has approved international Level 3 BTECs. Increasingly in the Middle East, we're operating at scale. And Pearson Benelux is an accredited awarding organisation in the Netherlands, and the International Level 3 BTEC Extended Diploma is accredited as a qualification in the same way as Ofqual accreditation, the Netherlands equivalent. We have that relationship in the Netherlands. So just in terms of the design of the International Level 3, I've alluded to some of these points before. So as I said, content standards are aligned and benchmarked to the RQF 2016, but we've allowed ourselves to update that content where we felt it's appropriate to do so. UK legislation, as you would expect, has been removed, but there are opportunities written into content to pick up and use legislation which is relevant to the local context or any international rules and regulations. Content additions we've added in, as I say, electrical automotive manufacturer, AI, computer science, etc. So there are a number of areas where we've updated the content working from the RQF basis. We did involve universities in our content review process across all of our sectors. We felt it's important to carry that on from the RQF developments so that universities were able to see the updates we were making. So we had a small number of universities in each of the sectors involved in reviewing the content. In terms of design, another design element which I'll pick up a little bit later on is the Pearson set assignments. So I should be very clear, the International Level 3 BTEC does not have examinations. I know that's an issue of discussion and of interest, but we do have Pearson set assignments. These are assignments which Pearson sets, and we mandate that centres need to take these assignments in these 4 units. And that allows us to set a standard of the assignment and to be able to benchmark evidence across different jurisdictions to make sure that that evidence is comparable. Where we see that there is any misalignment in evidence from a particular centre or a particular jurisdiction, we're able to act on that very quickly. I will talk a little bit more about the additional measures we've put in place for quality assurance as well, because I know that's a topic of interest. I just wanted to pull out a couple of areas in design which are really central, I think, to how we've taken BTEC forward. So in terms of technical skills, they form a large part of the BTEC, obviously alongside technical knowledge. And the big thing, one of the big things, design features of BTEC is that learners are able to combine their knowledge and skills and particularly work that through in terms of their assessment. But core to our design strategy is employers, and we see employers as being absolutely central to what we're doing. So we work with some of the employers which you see on the slide. We work very closely with them. We've developed some partnerships with some of these employers, and employer recognition is something which we're increasingly pulling on in order to make sure that our content is absolutely right, and that employers recognise the validity of BTEC when learners are presenting BTEC for job roles. And really, we've looked at this across all of our sectors to make sure that we are really focusing on employers. There is a local, national and international paradigm to this, and internationally we've been looking at international employers who employ across jurisdictions, and looking at the types of content I want to see universally across jurisdictions, but also within jurisdictions, because our different countries are at different economic stages and they form a different, sometimes different, have different economic profiles. We're looking at contextualising that content often within those jurisdictions. So we're working very closely with employers and making sure that the BTEC content and jurisdiction is right for that learner. And then transferable skills. So we've, across our international suite, this is actually something we've done across international A levels, international GCSEs, and all of our international BTECs, is to both map our BTEC units into the US National Research Council's 21st Century Skills Framework. That framework has been in place for a number of years now, but we felt the value of consistency in this area. And also the recognition across our international general academic qualifications and our international BTEC, particularly for our international schools who are teaching across academic and vocational. The framework includes cognitive, intrapersonal, interpersonal skills, and these skills are mapped into assignments. What we have done is develop resources which call out these skills and support teachers to develop these skills. So these skills are integrated into the model, but explicitly drawn out so that teachers are focusing on these skills through the course of learning. So rather than being a piecemeal mapping exercise, and those of us involved in curriculum development for a number of years, there are numerous sort of mapping exercises we've had to engage with. What we felt we really needed to do with these was to make them evident in the course of teaching and learning, and correspondingly we've made sure that they are front and centre of our teaching resources. And we have, as we've engaged with employers, these are the skills which they've been referencing in terms of soft employability skills. So communication skills, leadership skills, critical thinking skills, etc. These are the skills which come out of those consultations and which we have mapped into. I think I'm passing over to you, Tom. I'll drive whilst you speak.
Thank you very much, Phil. Right, so what we've got here, we've got showed it in the BTEC Internationals. We've got a range of subjects that cover a lot of different sectors. So we have business, engineering, enterprise, a range of engineering qualifications. We've also got construction, hospitality. We have the creatives, art and design, performing arts, music, creative media, as well as land-based, science, sport and IT. So almost all of the sectors that you would see appear in any BTEC Nationals in this country, we also do have them offered internationally. So just to give you an idea of when we talk about different BTEC levels of how they map over to sort of other equivalent qualifications in academic circles. So we're talking about the international level 3 BTECs. They're the same as equivalent as international A levels. That's the level and standard we do. Obviously level 2 is the same as GCSEs at grade A to C. You can see how our higher nationals fit in there in terms of equivalence to first and second year university degrees. And also we can see on the right hand side how that relates to sort of areas of entry levels in different areas of employment. So next slide. So to give you an idea about the naming conventions of the different international BTECs and their equivalents, so you know exactly what you're getting. So the international BTECs are named exactly the same as the RQF BTEC, so there shouldn't be any kind of room for confusion there. So obviously our certificates, the motion and certificates is named the same as the RQF in the UK, which is same as an international advanced subsidiary A level. So that's equivalent of half an A level. You have the subsidiary diploma, which is a 360 DLH qualification. That's the same as UK extended certificate or an international.
That's our only difference, Tom. Just to interject
yes,
there.
The only difference. I realised as I said it, I noticed that as I looked down, I was like, oh yes, there's that one difference that we kept. We then have the foundation diploma, which is the equivalent to 1.5 A levels, so the same as an international A level plus an international advanced subsidiary or a foundation diploma. We have a diploma, which is 720 DLH, which is the same as 2 international A levels. And then the extended diploma, which is the full-time qualification, which is equivalent to 3 international A levels and the same as an extended diploma in this country. Okay, to give you an idea of some of the different models that you may come across from applicants, we're not going to go through every possible combination that there is, but the most popular ones, you will often find learners who may take a subsidiary diploma with 2 other A levels. So they'll be supplementing their academic studies with a vocational qualification. So this is an example where someone might decide they're doing economics and mathematics at A level, but they want to do some business enterprise alongside it. Another model you might get is someone who's doing 3 different A levels, but wants some technical skills alongside that. So maybe they will do a certificate and do a 180 in something like IT to give them some different skills. And the third model, which is also quite common, is the learners that are very engaged in one particular sector or subject areas and now are doing a full-time qualification. So they will do an extended diploma, much like in this country, which may be they're in creative media or another subject where they're spending their whole time of study in developing their technical skills and knowledge in that one particular sector or area.
Great, thank you, Tom. I think Ria, you were going to lead on these.
Yeah, great, thank you. So I believe many of you are familiar with the A-level and BTEC mixed curriculum model that Tom has just spoken about. We wanted also to talk to you about another mixed curriculum model that we see as growing quite significantly in the future, and that's in relation to BTEC with the IB. Now, there's something called the International Baccalaureate Career Programme. Now, this consists of 3 different components. So that will include at least 2 courses from the IB diploma programme, which will be assessed in a standard way through examinations and marked by the IB. Then there's also what's called the CP core, which consists of 4 different components. So the reflective project, which is externally moderated by the IB, as well as service learning, personal professional skills and language development. And then the third component of the IBCP is the career-related studies component, and that's where BTEC plays a role, because that's where BTEC and other vocational qualifications can play a part and be taken as part of the IBCP. Now, in the UK, the BTEC RQF qualifications can form part of the IBCP, and we know a number of schools, for example, in Kent, do this delivery model. And in terms of our international learners, they can take the BTEC International Suite as part of the IBCP, and we see this as a real area of growth within the international markets that we operate. BTEC Level 3 is the most popular component in the career-related studies element by far of all the vocational qualifications that can count as part of the IBCP. And there I've just given you some stats about what the numbers were looking like in terms of the number of schools. So you can see over 200 schools were offering the IBCP across 23 different countries, and we're expecting that to grow considerably over the next few years. If we go to the next slide, so this next slide shows some of the potential models. This is by no means an exhaustive list of the different delivery models of the IBCP in which BTEC can play a part. If you see on the top row, you can see that this particular learner has undertaken the extended diploma, so the 3 A-level equivalent, alongside 2 of the IB diploma courses and a CP core. And then the row 2 and 3 below show the BTEC 2 A-level equivalent and then the BTEC 1 A-level equivalent. So you can have a variety of combinations alongside the CP core and at least 2 different IB diploma courses, either standard level or higher level. If we can move to the next slide, brilliant, thank you. And so this slide gives you an example of some of the recent progression opportunities that holders of the IBCP have attained, having gone through the route. So if we look at those who've gone down the 3 A-level equivalent route, so you see that one learner, for example, has taken the BTEC extended diploma in applied science, so the 3 A-level equivalent, alongside the IB geography and English language and lit courses, and progress onto a degree in marine biology at Portsmouth. If we look at one of the examples from below, so you can see one student has done the BTEC diploma, so the 2 A-level equivalent in health and social care, alongside IB biology and psychology, and then progressed onto a midwifery programme. So there are a variety of combinations, and we see this kind of increasing in popularity as time progresses. We thought it was also helpful if you go to the next slide, just to show you a couple of the case studies of recent and current BTEC international learners. So these 2 students, Megan and Wilbert, are 2 holders of the BTEC International Level 3 qualifications, and they were BTEC award winners for 2021. Now, in the case of Megan, she won our BTEC Sport Learner of the Year award. This award is across the UK and international, so she had a lot of competition to face in order to win that particular award, and she is studying a BTEC International in Sport and holds qualifications in personal training alongside, and is also certified netball coach. It's not surprising she has a lot of extracurricular activities within the sports sector. In the case of Wilbert, he won the Performing Arts Learner of the Year Award qualification, and he is actually studying 2 BTECs, so the sub-dip size in Performing Arts, as well as a BTEC in Sport, and he's doing extra studies, taking an A-level French alongside as well. So it gives you an indication and flavour of some of the students taking the courses and some of the kind of popular delivery models, particularly in relation to the use of the BTEC international qualifications. But I think it's back to you now, Phil.
Yes, thank you. So just on to BTEC assessment. So we've continued with our internal assessment methodology for BTEC. And I think it's fair to say there's 2 main reasons for that. The first is that that it has always been absolutely central to BTEC that knowledge and skills are combined in assessment, and that learners are pulling on both knowledge and skills as they work towards their assessment. That's the core benefit of BTEC, and we've wanted to continue that with our international centres. I think the other element for us is accessibility. In ensuring that assessment is always accessible for our learners, irrespective of the jurisdiction they're in, the connectivity issues that they may have in terms of internet and those sorts of issues. So we have retained our internal assessment methodology, but we have introduced some changes, and I just wanted to put out some of those for you. We do continue with many of our units to have sample assignments, so we support the internal quality mechanisms of our schools. So every school, international school, gets visited or they get a one-to-one interaction with the standards verifier, as we've had to do in COVID times. So there isn't that sort of space, if you like, between Pearson and the school. There's a very, very close connectivity in terms of us checking their quality, and that is in terms of assignment setting and that marking process. 25% of the units which students take will be Pearson set assignments, as I said. So those are assignments which they're mandated to take. They've been set by us and set in a way to fully realise the content as you would expect, but also so that we can use the evidence from those assignments to benchmark quality of response from students across multiple cohorts. So I just wanted to put out those points. The third thing which I wanted to put out, which I think is a little bit of a game changer, really, I think internationally, is that what we've chosen to do is to develop a system which supports the both the course design and the quality assurance of the Pearson International BTEC, and we are also looking to introduce this into the UK. So this is an end-to-end user system for both teachers and students. So teachers, students get independent logins, and the system is set up as to manage the assessment process, both from a teacher and a student perspective. So teachers will use this to design or update their assignments. They will record their assignments within the system. The system will prompt them in terms of internal verification checks for those assignments. The standards verifier will have access to those assignments before they're given to the student to check that they are fit for purpose. When it comes to the evidence, students will upload their evidence into the system. Teachers will mark and review that evidence within the system. Standards verifiers and Pearson will have access to all the evidence from a cohort within that within the system. So it provides an end-to-end system for managing the quality assurance and assessment of the assignments. So to our mind, this will increase, and we're looking to increase accuracy, obviously pre-populated inboxes, information, etc., within the system in terms of tracking and recording student achievement. Students be kept on track, automated notifications, feedback. A student can log in and see when their assignment is due. As I say, they upload their assignment into the system. The system will have an interface with Turnitin for plagiarism checks. So there's an element of control across internal assessment, which we don't get with the paper-based system. As I say, control over the process, so the automated digital workflow, a reduction in paper, and the harnessing of that material. So we can drop in and dip in at any point of the assessment process, and we will. SVs will have that continuous relationship with centres and be able to drop in and review where they are in terms of their assessment schedule, as well as dipping in and reviewing the evidence itself. And of course, we can track progress and marks and feedback associated with evidence. And then finally, it provides data. So we will get data of rate of progress, on scoring, on time for completion, on Turnitin outcomes, etc., etc. So data will be recorded within the system and will be available to those who we choose to make it available to. We are looking at this being mandatory in international centres, so we're in the rollout process at the moment for this system, and we are, as I say, looking to introduce this into the UK as well, and we are looking at the interface issues in terms of systems which colleges, particularly in the UK and actually in the Netherlands, who also have quite advanced systems. We're looking at how we interface this technology with the technology which they're running for their own systems. But internationally, we are looking for this to be a mandatory system, and we are on the rollout schedule for this to be mandatory. Yeah, just wanted to sort of touch on our resources. So we've developed ebooks, tutor resources for our international level 3. This is a way for us to ensure that the standard of delivery is benchmarked, if you like, so that you know, there's consistency of approach. These are available for our international centres. There are a range of different types of resources. So we have a partnership with the School of Marketing in the UK, and we develop international resources for marketing. We have a partnership with Liverpool FC, and we develop resources alongside our internationals in sport. And then we have additional programs as well, which supplement what we do, such as in artificial intelligence, business team management, and workplace behaviours. So just in terms of recognition generally, and where we are in terms of recognition, so we have agreements from about 75 universities, both in the UK and internationally, agreement that they consider international level 3 BTEC in a portfolio. So we recognise, I think, that some universities will not want to say that they always accept, but because you're looking at a student and all the contributory parts which a student might bring to the table. So we now ask our universities whether they will consider international level 3 BTEC as within a presentation by a student for a particular course of study. And we have 75 universities, including US, Canada, Australia, Southeast Asia, and as I say, UK universities. We have, as I said earlier, both partnerships agreements and recognition statements from employers, those who've been involved in the development of our qualifications, and those who we are working with very closely in partnership. So in sport, for example, we have a partnership with Liverpool as a vocational employer in terms of our international level 3 sport. But others, we have statements of endorsement, and many of the employers have been involved in the development process. UK HEI, you may be familiar with UK HEI. It used to be UK NARIC. So this is the government agency who assesses international qualifications and curriculum equivalence and benchmarks it to standard in the UK. So they've reviewed the international level 3 BTEC and benchmarked it in terms of standard into RQF level 3. So that work has been done, and we have statements from ENIC, and it's, if you like, an additional external quality check on our design processes. Interestingly, international accreditation. So the Netherlands has an accreditation process similar to Ofqual in the sense of the awarding organisation needs to become a validated organisation. So we've successfully passed that, and Pearson Benelux is an awarding organisation within the Netherlands. And then also for qualifications, those need to be approved by the Netherlands regulator, and they do have quite a stringent process, including benchmarking into the European qualification framework levels, and then all of the questions about assessment, security of award, risks, mitigations, etc., which we would expect. So we've also been successful in that process for our international level 3 BTEC extended diploma in business, and we are looking to get more of our qualifications accredited in the Netherlands. And then national government. So I mentioned the Thai government recognises our international BTECs. The UAE government does. The Omani government does. So various governments internationally, ministries of education recognise international BTEC as a qualification progression. So we this isn't a collection exercise. This is an exercise for us building relationships So having those conversations, building trust, making sure that our information and evidence is out there and easily accessible, and yes, continuing those discussions so that people can be assured of the standard of international level 3 BTEC. So really, yes, well, we just love to take any questions from you, any additional support we can provide for you. As you would imagine, we'd be delighted if you would consider international level 3 BTEC students. But if you've got any questions with regard to that, we stand ready to hopefully to answer your questions. So yeah, just over to you, really. And thank you, everybody, for attending.
Thank you. Do pop your questions into the chat function at the bottom, or feel free to raise your hand or unmute yourself to ask your question, whichever is easiest. Really keen to understand, particularly if there's any additional support or resources that we can create to help you understand and familiarise yourself with the new qualifications as well. Any questions? I'll give it a minute just to say, because I'm not sure we mentioned during the presentation. So the first cohort of BTEC Level 3 international learners are completing next summer. So some of you may very well receive applications from holders of the qualification in this admission cycle.
I think a question's come directly to me, but Maureen has asked, do you intend on gaining the results at the same time of the year as the UK BTEC results?
For the most part, yes. So our Middle East cohorts, our East African cohorts, yes, generally they do certificate at the same time. Thailand has a slightly different academic year, so they run a May to May academic year. And some of our Southeast Asian cohorts run a January to January academic year. So we do see some differences in Southeast Asia and Thailand. But I think it's fair to say that the majority of our cohorts have a similar academic year to the UK, more presenting at similar times.
Just to add to that, so for international learners that apply via UCAS, so we will send you their results via UCAS on a similar timescale that you've been used to for receiving the BTEC QCF results, so kind of early summer onwards. And then the BTEC RQF results day next summer, as you may be aware, will be aligning with A-level results day this year, so the same Thursday. But you'll again receive results in a kind of similar time frame as in prior years. Any other comments or questions? Also, do feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions that have come to you after the event today. Really happy to support, or if you've got any feedback, either on the qualifications or in terms of additional support or information and guidance we can provide.
There's another question from Joanna. She says, are there any plans to more closely align the assessment of the international BTECs with the RQF BTEC, including exams?
It's something which we're investigating. As I said, originally we decided not to do that for the two reasons I outlined. We recognise you know, that's been a drive in the England context. We are, as you can imagine, working in international, we're responding to a number of different international contexts as well, and we do need to make sure that what we're producing is fit for purpose for those contexts. So if we are getting and you know, part of this consultation exercise, part of this exercise of speaking to you and speaking to others, and as I said in the last slide, it's an ongoing process is to gather that feedback. So if we do get feedback which says to us that for some subjects, you know, we absolutely have to have exams in some of these areas, then we'll start looking at that. It's something which we're open to consideration in these areas if there is sort of strong drive for that. But I think we have, and what we've recognised in terms of the RQF development is the RQF development as it should have been, and you know, make no bones about that, was an England focused reform. You know, that was the intention, to meet the needs of England learners, and you know, this is being funded by the England taxpayer, and absolutely that's what it should be doing. So you know, we have to widen the scope and have a wider consideration when we're thinking about the factors which influence the international decision. So my answer to that is it's on the table. It's not something we're working on immediately, but we are gathering that feedback. If we do get that steer and that feedback, then you know, we will respond to that.
Just to add, if any of you do have feedback on that particular point, do feel free to reach out to me. I think many of you have my email address, and I'll pop it into the chat as well.
Yeah, I mean, one of the reasons for us looking at the Pearson progress, the internal quality assurance process, is that we wanted to create something which would simplify the internal assessment process, and create something where international governments would have assurance on the quality of the assessments which are being set. And as I described, I think there are a number of different measures within that digital system which support quality. And I think as a regulator, in the sense of us regulating standards of the qualifications, both the capture and the ongoing access, so not single point in time access, but ongoing access of assessment evidence across the course of assessment, gives us a lot of power and control in terms of what's going on within those schools. So I mean, this is one of the reasons you know, we wanted to introduce that system, so that we could have more control over internal assessment, which we think is integral to what BTEC is, and we did want a system which defended it.
Any other final questions or comments? I think after today's event, we should be able to share with you a link to our website, which has the syllabus and assessment materials that Phil's referenced during the presentation. So you'll have that to hand for you and your teams to review.
Yeah, we'll definitely do that. We'll share these slides, and any questions? Yeah, any questions which occur to you, or if any of your subject teams have particular questions, we'll be very pleased to try to answer them.
Any other final questions?
Yes, Angela asks, when will the BTEC result dates be confirmed?
So BTEC is that for the if we talk about the RQF qualifications, that date has already been confirmed. So it's the same date as A level this year. I'm just double checking what that date is. So it's Thursday. So I think it's I'll need to double check, but I believe it's the 18th of August. If we're talking about RQF, and we have we're imagining that 84% will be completing the RQF qualifications this summer, and then the remaining will be completing on some of the QCF qualifications that were still in existence, and those will be sent to you on a rolling basis via UCAS on a similar time frame as in prior years.
Stephanie also asks, do you have any stats on the number of students by subject and proportion combined with other qualifications at this point? Would be interesting to know volume interest.
We certainly have stats per sector. I'm just wondering in terms of HESA data, whether we have any stats on combinations of sectors with A-levels, Ria.
We'll need to double check. It shows, I know that we can see where BTEC learners are doing a combination. I'm not sure if it's if we have the data on exactly what combinations and in different proportions, but we can definitely do a check, and then what we can do as a follow-up to the event is send you all just an update with a summary of some of the statistics that we've been able to collate.
Yeah, we can certainly do that.
And I think the last question is from Yeliz, is are they taught in English in all countries?
That's a really good question. It is something which we were, Ria and I were discussing. Historically, that has always been the case, but increasingly, as we move forward, we're accepting teaching in other languages. We have a contract in Uzbekistan with a college in Uzbekistan, and they teach in Uzbek. And there are, I think, some of our Middle East centres of teaching in Arabic. So I think in the past, the QCF historically has almost uniformly been taught in English, but that's increasingly not being the case as we move forward. At the moment, the certifications will indicate whether they're taught in English or not. But as we move into more national provision, there will be different indications, I think, on the certificates. So most of our national provisions, we will have some sort of endorsement from ministries, for example. So you'll be able to see very clearly if it's a Saudi Ministry of Education endorsed International BTEC, and that would have been taught in Arabic. So the picture is changing, and that's why I can't be definitive on this, but we are increasingly allowing for more translated provision, which I think is, that corresponds to us, not, trying to increase our range and, not be 100% Anglophone, to be honest.
And you'll be able to tell from the certificate, because there'll be some form of indicator there. So yeah, that will help. Great. Any final comments or questions? Or we might be able to give you 3 minutes back of your time, which might be enough to make a cup of tea.
Yeah.
Okay.
Lovely.
Brilliant. Thank you all so much for attending. We hope today was a useful event. As I mentioned before, do feel free to reach out to us if you've got any follow-up questions or comments or feedback, and we will send you through details of the syllabus and assessment materials, and also some of the stats that we've discussed today. Thank you all so much for attending. Take care now. Bye.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.